Hello, and welcome to the 108th episode of Marathon Swim Stories, where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers and those who support them. I'd like to chat with more people who support marathon swimmers. I'm marathon swimmer and coach Shannon Keegan. I had a bit of an unplanned hiatus the last few weeks. I hope that you used that as an opportunity to catch up on some older episodes that you might have missed. I'm recently returned from the solstice swim on the island of Oahu in Hawaii, where I had the privilege of sharing the water with Stefan Reinke again, and Ryan Leong, and the rest of the Ala Moana Beach Swim Club. The water was a bit hot and salty for my taste, but it was such a great opportunity to connect with people in person and get in some distance. I just couldn't pass it up. Now it's been a whirlwind since I've been back in Southern Oregon, and we're facing an extreme heat wave. It's currently 113 degrees outside. That's 45 Celsius to you guys in the rest of the world. So at this moment, I am extremely grateful for my air conditioning, and I'm contemplating putting together an ice bath after this. It's been a really busy time, and I think that is probably extending to others of you in the world. I really want to keep the ball rolling with Marathon Swim Stories, though, so if you know of anyone whose story that you'd like to hear, or if you would like to share your story, reach out to me, please. Shannon@intrepidwater.com. I have just a few weeks before spending some time in Tahoe, and then right after that I'm heading for vacation in the East Coast to Vermont and Maine, and I really want to have some stories in the hopper so that they can roll out even while I'm on vacation. For today's episode, I think that I recorded this over a month ago. I got to speak with Brenton Ford, the Brenton Ford of Effortless Swimming. I stumbled onto Brenton's content about 4 or 5 years ago when I decided to re-engineer my stroke after seeing myself swim. It was on my swim around Mercer Island. I had a fantastic kayaker who had a GoPro, and that footage was very revealing. Have you seen yourself swim lately? I highly recommend it. It's the only way that you can find out if what you think you're doing is even close to what you're actually doing. But then, knowing what to do with that information, of course, there's tons of resources out there, but you've got to find content that resonates and that you can internalize, and then you have to figure out how to implement those changes in your stroke, which is where a coach comes in really handy. I hope that you enjoy this episode. All right, Brenton, thank you so much for being my guest today. I've been a huge fan of your work for a few years now, and I'm really excited to talk to you. So tell me, what's your story?
Yeah, thanks, Shane. I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on the podcast. It's sometimes strange being on the other end of a podcast because I've normally got people on doing what I'm about to do here and sort of telling my story. So my background has always been around the pool. I was lucky to start very young as a swimmer. My granddad used to manage a pool in Morwell, which is like in an area here in Australia. And then he used to coach me as a kid, and then my dad took over when he passed away. So I was coached by my granddad and my dad, and my parents run a learn to swim business as well. So it's just always been around the pool. And so yeah, I was lucky enough to learn to swim really young. And obviously it helps when you learn to swim when you're young. But I mean, a lot of the people that I coach now, the first swim lesson they have is with me as a 40 or a 50-year-old. And I'm sure you've met a lot of people who it's the same thing. They start swimming very late in life. And yeah, look, certainly takes a bit more work when you're starting late, but it doesn't mean that the enjoyment isn't there either, because it's just it's such a good thing to do. And yeah, so I was an okay swimmer growing up, made a few national age group finals as a teenager, was just off Olympic trial level, and was never sort of going to make the Australian team or the Olympics or anything like that. But I just loved training, and I enjoyed competing, but I was really all about training, I think. And then when I went to university at 19, I started coaching at Melbourne University for 2 years. And then I started coaching a master's group here called PowerPoints. And I coached them for 8 or 9 years. And we won a couple of club championships, which is like the overall point score at nationals. But I started my business at the same time, just on the side, which is Effortless Swimming. And just started putting some videos out there and some podcasts, and just kind of sharing some stuff that I was teaching the swimmers that I'd work with in person at PowerPoints, and stuck at it for the last, I think it's been almost probably 10 years, 11 years since I started that. And wow. In the last 5 or 6 years, it's really taken off. It took a long time. But with that consistency, and I think also me personally just learning how to be a better coach and how to explain things in a way that hopefully is simple and people can take on board. I think we've had really good, uptake on the videos and that sort of thing, and our clinics over here. So I think I'm pretty fortunate to be able to do what I'm doing, because I love to coach, I love swimming, and I also love to I sort of like the online stuff and putting out videos and all of that. I get a lot of enjoyment out of that too. So I guess that's my story. Do a little bit of swimming, and I know we're going to talk a bit about Rottnest, which I did a few years ago, which was a great experience in my first marathon swim. But I'm a bit of a softie in the cold, so my main thing is coaching these days, because I know a lot of swimmers that do like the English Channel, and all these crazy swims, and I really admire their ability to do it, because for me, I need a wetsuit on. I get so cold.
Tell us a little bit what it was like. Like, why did you decide to do Rottnest?
I only found out about it probably, I'd say maybe 6 years ago, I think, is when I sort of first heard about it, because my background was pool swimming, but I started to work a lot with triathletes, and I started to work a lot with marathon swimmers, and particularly swimmers training for the Channel. And I heard about the Rottnest swim, and it was something that I had some friends do. It sounded really enjoyable, like a big day out, but it's something achievable for the amount of training that I could put in. And obviously it's really it was the only local Australian-based marathon swim that I knew of. So I thought, all right, before I have my second child, I'm going to do this swim. I'm going to train for it. And a good friend of mine, Lysandra Di Cavallo, she was training for it as well. And I thought, okay, we can do it, train mostly together, and I'll have someone there to bounce off of as well. So yeah, just a bit of a challenge. And I thought, because I think those bucket list things are good to do. Like, I did an Ironman before my first child. Tick that box. Haven't been on the bike since then. It's sat in the garage for 5 years. But then I thought, marathon swim would be really good to do too. So I've done that. And again, I love the training for it. Like, the training for me was probably the best part. And the swim was great as well. But I love that training, and being in the ocean. It's just, there's nothing better than that. And I think, with reading some of your story, like, it sounds like it's just that appeal. There's something about the open water that really gets you.
Yeah, for me, it's really like, well, once I kind of found the solo marathon swimming, and I could kind of not worry about the other people and what was going on. It was really just about me and finding my own limits. That's been a big deal for me, even just to realize. I think it's even more so after having kids, is realizing that, just like that there's something more out there than the competition, and that I can just keep pushing myself, and that's enough, and really fulfilling at the same time.
That's right. And like, there's only if you think about competition swimming, like, okay, there's only going to be one person who's going to win the race. There's going to be a person gets second and third. Like there's only so many places, available for getting those medals. But with this stuff, it's like, I'm have so many friends and stuff like that that are setting their own challenges with different swims. Like they're coming up with them. Like I had a friend do 100K the other day across 5 days, but she said, all right, I'm going to swim from here to here. And so she organized all the support and that sort of thing. And it's like, that's such a good challenge. And it's just pushing your own boundaries. And, and it's not about speed. It's just about lasting through it. And I think that's, it's so much more achievable for people because, not everyone's gifted with this speed to become an Olympic swimmer. So I think that's a big appeal of it. And I can really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit what it was like kind of, preparing for Retnest. Did you, what was your longest swim like before that? How did you kind of have to shift gears to train for it? What was that like for you?
Yeah. So I was used to doing, the longest swim I had ever really done was, I think it was like a 5K swim. When it was horrible. I just wasn't prepared for it and I blew up. So this was a couple of years before it. And so I knew that, my plan was basically, I think in end of October, I was in Thailand because we were running these Hell Week camps over there. And then I booked this Rottnest swim. And at the same time, I was like, all right, I better start training for it now. So the swim was in February. So I had I think it was a bit over 3 months, maybe 14, 15 weeks to train. So I basically just got this Excel document and I sort of put in there, all right, this is how far I want my longest swim to be. And this is roughly how far I want to be swimming each week. And then each week I'd just, progressively build up to it. So normally each week I'd have an open water swim without a wetsuit in the bay here in Melbourne. The warmest it gets to is about 21 degrees, 22 at the warmest. And and so I just progressively built up. The longest swim I did was about 2 or 3 weeks out. I think it's about 16 Ks at a pretty slow pace. But we just built up 1 or 2 Ks a week, started at 4, 5, 6, gradually built up. And that distance was fine. Doing that 16 Ks was so enjoyable. We got a sunny day. It was flat. It was just, it was magical. And and I didn't get cold or anything like that. And one of the things that happened during the race was I ended up getting a bit hypothermic towards the end. Oh, no. And my pace, the last 5 Ks was just, it went from around I think I was holding a 122, 123 for the first part of the race. And it felt great. And it dropped off to around 145 to 150, the last 5 Ks. Wow. And it just, it blew right out.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't know I was hypothermic at the time. I was like, I'm very cold and I am not enjoying this. Yeah. But I just thought, maybe I'm just tired and it's hard to get the arms over. And it wasn't until a few days later that I was like, hang on a second, when I actually looked back at what happened with it. So there was a lot of learnings that came from the swim itself. And and just the first time you do anything, I think there's just so much to learn from it. So I wasn't hard on myself about not surviving the cold very well and all of that. Right. For me, the process of training up for it was really fun. I felt so fit and haven't been that fit swimming wise since I was probably 15 years of age, I think. Just enjoyed that, but did pretty much all the training on my own except for those open water swims. So it was certainly a bit of a grind leading up to it. Got doing a 10K swim in the pool by yourself. I was like, it's it wasn't, it was enjoyable, but it was certainly I had to drag myself to the pool at times, especially when I was at the pool a lot, coaching and that sort of thing. Sometimes it's the last place you want to be, right, after coaching for 15 hours on a weekend and that sort of thing. Right. That I was doing, but no, it worked out okay in the end.
Yeah. So I bet coming out of that swim, you didn't feel great if you were hyperthermic coming into the finish. But I guess in retrospect, how did it feel when looking back on that accomplishment?
Yeah, it was. So I was at the so leading into the swim, I thought I could do reasonably well, and my goal was sort of top 10 for the event, and I thought, if all goes to plan, top 10 is certainly achievable. Times were good in training. The distance was no problem in training. And so I think about 10K into it, I was around like fifth or seventh or something, all going well. I was feeling good and just sticking to the plan. And and then just after that, I just started to slow down a little bit. And my feeder, so right next to you've got a boat and you've got someone on the kayak. And my as I started to go a bit further, like 13, 14 Ks, I knew I was feeling heavier. I was like, oh, okay, the pace is starting to drop off, but just stick with it. And the look on his face was just like, I could tell that he was like, I wasn't swimming well, because I could just see that he was probably communicating with the boat and they're like, how's he doing? He's not looking great. So I could just tell by that look on his face. But I kept swimming. And then after, 15, 16 Ks, like I was cold. I wanted to get out. And if I hadn't come so far and if I hadn't been such a big build up, I would have gotten out, because I was so cold. And I had to tell myself at that 15, 16K mark, I had to convince myself how lucky I was to be doing the event, because it's like, I was just getting that cold that I had to convince myself to just stay in there. And it's like, all right, I'm so lucky to be here, because who else gets the opportunity to come over to Perth and do this swim? And so I managed to convince myself, but boy, I was happy to get out at the end. And my wife said when I got out, I was like, there was nothing, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I was obviously shaking and that sort of thing. And I was out of it for the first couple of hours as we were sitting on the boat, and the captain of the boat, you want a beer, you want this? So I was just like, nah, I don't want anything. I just want to curl up in bed and have a sleep. But so looking back at it, at that part of it, I mean, what I'd probably do, I'd probably put on a little bit more weight for it, even though it's not that cold. I think it's about 20 or 21 degrees in Roto. So not cold by any sort of standards compared to the English Channel and all these other ones. But for me, as I said, I struggled. So I'd probably put a bit more insulation on as well, just some of the pig fat or
the brown fat,
the brown fat, so so I'd do a few more things like that. But the good thing about it for me personally, because I think I see myself as a swimmer but more as a coach these days, so for me it was good experience, and I can use some of that to relate to the guys that I'm coaching now, because I think that certainly helps when you've been through something like that before. So it did help with that.
You don't see yourself looking for a warm marathon swim somewhere around the world to travel to.
That's why I wouldn't do anything colder than that. And people have joked like, oh, you should swim the English Channel. And it's like, well, I just don't handle the cold. And I, like a friend of mine, when I was coaching at PowerPoints, he trained for the English Channel. He was training for a pretty solid 18 months to 2 years, and he smashed it. Like he went about 10 hours, and when he got to the other end, he was like, I'm ready to go again. Can we go again? And his captain's like, well, no, we've only planned one. So he's talking about the double, but but for him, he put on a fair bit of weight, like 8 or 9 kilos. And I don't think he's taken it off since. And this was like 6 years ago. So it's just, so I look at that and go, I reckon I'd have a hard time taking off the weight as well, because I try and eat well, but it does not happen all the time. And so it'd be easy to get stuck into that. So,
what about your technique? Did you transform your technique at all going into like swimming a longer distance, or what was that like?
For me, like being a pool swimmer, I struggled for about 3 years in the open water. Like I could swim okay, but my stroke was very much a pool stroke. And then over the sort of first 3 years that I started open water swimming, I sort of changed my stroke for it, where the main things that sort of changed, like I was a little bit of a messier swimmer, so to speak. My recovery over the top was a little bit higher, a little bit wider. I was a bit more aggressive with the entry. And when I went back to swimming in the pool, so when was it? It's probably, I think it was maybe, so I started open water swimming around sort of 1920. And when I went back into the pool to compete at around 25, 26, all my friends and stuff that saw me race, like a few of them that were the most honest ones, they're like, your stroke looks horrible. And I knew it, and I like, it felt pretty bad in the pool, and it was just so different to what I had done as a competitive swimmer. But I just couldn't change it. Like I really struggled to change it, because I was just so used to swimming open water, and that's all I was doing. So I think it's obviously there's a lot of similarities. What you do under the water is fairly similar, but for me, that kind of rhythm and what's happening over the top was very different. So I think I'm probably back a little bit more as a pool swimmer these days, just with my technique. But yeah, it certainly did change, because when there's chop and there's waves and all of that, sometimes you do have to be a little bit messier with the stroke. And so that's just what I'd turn to. And as much as it sort of hurt my feelings a bit for them to say, oh, like your stroke looks so bad, it was kind of a good wake-up call for when I actually went back to the pool to compete and to train, because like I knew it, I felt it, but it was good to have actually people say, like, this is how it is. Which was nice of them in a way.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I've kind of found, as a kind of, I guess I call myself a marathon swimming coach versus maybe like what you're doing. But like I feel like I teach people about the tools in your tool belt, and you have to be flexible, when you're out there.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's some things that are kind of under the water that you can kind of, it uses like a centering, like you want your core to be strong and, a strong catch and that connection. But you basically got to be ready for the waves to do whatever is going to happen, and just be ready to roll with it. And but that flexibility, teaching people to be flexible, is an interesting kind of component.
Yeah. It's exactly right. Like, you've got to, as a coach, you've got to, be able to adapt with the person that you're working with, because obviously there's so many different sort of styles that you see, and there's different things that people are training for. And the mistake that I made as a coach when I first started was I was trying to make everyone swim with the exact same style, this, pool swimmers style. And look, for a lot of adults, they don't have that range of motion. They don't have that mobility, flexibility to be able to swim like that. And if they are swimming for the open water, then you probably don't want them recovering really close to the body, or all these sorts of things. So you've got to be able to to be able to adapt with the person that you've got, and then teaching them how to be able to maybe change their stroke for the different situations they're going to find themselves in. And it's that's what we've got to do. So I think for me, I look back at how I used to coach as a 19, 20-year-old. And I just go, oh, geez, I'm glad I've progressed from there. But you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And it just, a lot of it comes with experience and working with different people and finding out what works and what doesn't. And it's taken me a long. Probably a slow learner. It's taken me a while to figure that out. But that's half the fun of it, is not everyone's the same, and it's kind of like this puzzle you've got to solve as a coach when you're working with different people, which I'm sure you've probably found as well.
Yeah. No, I love that aspect of it too. I feel like I handhold a little bit with just like kind of one person at a time, whereas you kind of do a lot of stuff. Tell us a little bit. So one of the favorite things I stumbled on just within the last, I guess, month or two, was your recap of your learnings about your own stroke, like from the prior year. When did you start doing that? Like, how long have you done that?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I think the first time I filmed myself was 2 years after initially running clinics. And at the clinics is where we film other people and analyze their stroke. And so the first time I got filmed, I was thinking, God, my stroke is going to be looking so good. Like I coach this all the time, and I swim reasonably well. And then I filmed it, and I just thought, oh my God, like I can't believe I'm doing these things wrong. So for me, it was when I'd enter and I'd reach forward, my hand would be right up near the surface. And we want to try and get it down a bit deeper towards like your shoulder, your underarm. And so that was like one of the main things. Like I'd come up really high, and that was slowing me down, and my catch was a little bit too shallow. So there's a whole host of things where I just couldn't believe I was doing them. So from that, I tried to change it after that. And then like every sort of year, I'd try and get some footage done when I was when we'd be in Thailand for this Hell Week camp, because I'd have some friends there, and I'd get them to just film me and so on. And like for me, it's obviously a work in progress still. But yeah, like there's always things to change. And the thing that I've found most beneficial for trying to change my own stroke is sometimes you've just got to exaggerate the things that you're trying to change so much that it just feels ridiculous. And one of the best things that I did to sort of discover that was where I used to live near Melbourne, there's a swim lab, which is like, it's an endless pool, got a camera, 30-second delay. And when I was in there, I was swimming. I noticed on the video that my catch was still too shallow. And so it just wasn't allowing me to get this sort of high elbow position, and it just wasn't as good as it could have been. So I had to try and go deeper. And so I was trying to fix it, and I'd swim for 20 seconds, I'd stop, watch the video, and I was like, that's exactly the same, but like I'm trying to change it. Like, what is going on here? And so after about 5 times of doing that, I thought, all right, I'm just going to try and pull with a straight arm, like really deep under the water, and we'll see where that lands it. And then when I stood up, I looked at the video, like it was spot on. And so, but it felt like I was straight. And so I was like, okay, so that's a helpful thing to keep in mind when I'm coaching other people, that if that's how it feels for me, with someone with a lot of experience with coaching and swimming, and it feels like that for me, it's probably going to be the same for other people as well. And that was just so useful for me to know about the extremeness of what you sometimes have to do to change things. Because I think it's like your stroke's like a rubber band. It's like you stretch it, but it always just wants to come back to its original size. And so it takes just so much like stretching it until it changes form, changes shape. So and you've just got to be persistent with it for 6 to 8 weeks usually.
Yeah. I like that analogy of the rubber band. The other thing I've noticed, just having like growing up swimming and just doing, I feel like I did millions of yards, like just reinforcing bad habits. So then when I'm now 40 some odd, trying to relearn how to, as basically after I had my second kid, I decided I was going to kind of basically start over again. And I wanted to, there's so many, like I think I saw, the first time I did Mercer Island in 2017. And my kayaker had a GoPro, and she shared the footage with me. And it was the same kind of thing, like the putting the brakes on. Like I saw that and I was just like, oh my God, really? I just couldn't believe that I had, as a coach, I'd talk to people and always talking about, high elbow, whatever. And then I look at this video of myself, and I'm doing the breaks. So that's when I decided I'm going to, teach myself how to swim again. It's probably about the time that I stumbled onto some of your stuff. But so I guess, like I was saying, is having like millions of yards of kind of reinforcing bad technique. Now I've come to a point where it's like, no matter what distance I'm training for, I force myself to do like this back to basics day, I'm going to start calling it, where I basically start with a float and I add my pole and I check my connection, with my stable core, and then make sure that, that the timing is right. In marathon swimming, I emphasize the glide because it's a free ride, but when the conditions are favorable. But I find if it just even over this last few months, I was doing some virtual challenges, and so I was trying to meet these distance goals, and I just kind of stopped focusing like that one day a week on my technique, and all my bad habits just all came back. I looked at some footage just from this last weekend. I was looking at it, I was like, my back gets hunched because I'm not, opening my chest and, dropping my shoulder blades down. So it's so important to A, see yourself swim, but B, find a way to knock out those bad habits, and just as a marathon swimmer, when you're just doing yards and yards, everyone's trying to build up miles. It's easy to just keep reinforcing bad habits. So I don't know. My point about that was so long.
No, well, it's and that's and that happens to everyone. I find, like I'll catch myself as well, just doing things that I should have changed a couple of years ago. Like they do just come back in, and so it just takes that constant focus of changing it. But I think if you focus on things enough and you're focusing on the right things, like it's a bit like a roller, like you're going downhill on a mountain. It's like you'll go down and there might be another rise, where you go back to old habits, but it's that progressive where you just eventually, bring those times down, but it's not just this steady downwards ride. It's like, you're going to slow down, but then you speed back up and all these sorts of things. But if you just focus on it, you'll eventually get there. And like I'm the same. Like I'll, if I'm not thinking about it, or if I've had a big weekend of coaching and haven't slept much, it's like, yes, things start to fall apart. And it's just being okay with it and knowing that that's going to happen. And then just keep that consistency going. Because the last thing you kind of want to do, especially if you're training for a long swim, is have a week or 2 weeks out of the water. So, you've got to just keep that consistency going and just know that not every session is going to be the same. And I mean, for me, like, what was it? So today's Tuesday. Yesterday was Monday. I trained yesterday morning, and I was 10 seconds. Okay, so per 100, 5 seconds slower per 100 in a similar set that we did the week before. I was just like, things are not happening today. But I'd coached for 12 hours on the Sunday. I'd got hardly any sleep because our kid was sick, and I was just like, all right, as long as I just do 3K here and I get through it, all right, that's better than nothing. But don't be hard on myself because I'm swimming so poorly. So that's why. And like, I have had swimmers in the past that I've coached where they're just so hard on themselves. Like they'll be a few seconds slower, and they just and they're just frustrated with themselves. But it doesn't do them any good. So just communicating that what to expect can be helpful. And I mean, you find that as a coach, don't you? Where you just sometimes there's a lot of education that needs to go into what to expect. And if you can set them up with knowing the things that they're going to experience, whether it be in the swim or in their training, then they know it's coming and they can be okay with when they go through those down periods. And same with like after particularly a big swim, like one of the coaches that we had coming to Thailand was Phil Rush, who's done double and triple of the English Channel. Mm-hmm. He talks about that with a lot of the guys that he takes across the Cook Strait and like Taupo, is that like after this swim, after you finish it, you're going to be on a high, but there's going to come that downwards part where, people, okay, everyone's talking about you, everyone's really interested in what you've done. And then after that, you're not training as much. No, like people aren't talking to you about this event. Like you'll have this probably down phase. So just letting them know that that's going to happen, and it just gives you a few more tools to be able to deal with it, I think.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that as well after a big swim?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of that's when you immediately start booking your next swim. It's a
good thing to do, I think. Have something else after it.
Yeah, but I don't know that I have the way that my like trajectory has been for marathon swimming. I'm always the feeling of accomplishment has been good enough. I do kind of look forward to the next one, but I don't know that I've had like that same down period, but I don't know that I ever get to that same level of training that some people do. So for me, it's a push to get through the swim. Like I not that I barely get through there, but I guess I emphasize the technique, core strength, and then just like I minimize I don't want to say minimize the distance, because I do the distance days and I do lead up like open water swims to build distance, but I just don't put in the thousands and thousands of yards that a lot of marathon swimmers do. And so I think for those people, like their intensity that they're going in, like that they're training going in, makes that letdown maybe a little bit bigger, or it's a personality type thing. I don't know. I'm just like, once I come out of it, I'm like, I'm glad I get to be at home with my kids for a little bit. I'm not running off to another swim. I don't know. So one of those.
Yeah. No, that's I mean, it's good if you don't. And like for me, I'm sort of similar. Like I don't get a big sort of down phase. The thing I felt a little bit after Roto and a little bit after the Ironman as well was almost a sense of purposelessness. Like there's just like, you've had this thing you're training for half a year, you put a lot of work into it, and then it's done, and then it's like, oh well what now? And for me that's been the challenge, and I haven't sort of booked another event after that. So I think it's just always trying to have something that you're looking forwards to after it, at least for me. And one of the things I really like to do is surfing. Like, and for me, that's like covers all things. It's like, it's a bit of play, it's being in the ocean, it's that cold water. Like it sort of covers all those bases for me. And so if I can do enough of that after something like a big swim, or for us, like when we were running camps, before things shut down. It's like I need a little bit of that just sort of free time, that play, to be able to reset and go, right, what are my goals? What do I want to work towards now, and what's important to me? And for me, it's that's kind of like that meditation that you get from a long swim, where you're just like, you're hearing that noise of the sea and the water, and you get that physical exhaustion. It's just like, I just love it. That's what I try and get every day. And if I get that every day, like I'm a good person to be around. Whereas if I don't, then a little bit less so.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome outlet to have, surfing and being able to do that every day. or whenever you can, I guess. Tell us a little bit about, I guess, I don't know, I want to hear a little about your camps and how that got started and how they've taken off and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we when I was from like through my 20s, myself and some friends that I used to swim with growing up, we would go up to North Queensland where it's warm, and we'd do like an informal training camp. So there'd be like 6 to 12 of us roughly going up, staying in this one place. Some of us sleeping on the floor, and we just smash ourselves training for like 5 to 7 days. And so we'd normally like get up, we'd do some boxing and some running and that sort of things on the beach in the morning, and then we'd go for a training session after that. Then we'd come back, have lunch, and then we'd go for another training session in the afternoon. And we'd do that training camp in the lead up to this sort of local state country championships, which you'd all go along to and just get together as a group. So like that event, it wasn't like a huge event or anything, but it was a bit of fun. So we'd do it in the lead up for that. And those training camps were just so much fun, where we just get to, get so fit within a week. We'd have fun hanging out, eating together. And just, it was kind of like school camp, but for adults. And so when the opportunity presented itself, when a guy that I knew, he was working at Ymca, which is a resort in Thailand, in Phuket there, which we were, which had sort of just started. And he said, you should bring a group over. And I thought, and I was sort of early days of effortless swimming, didn't have much of a sort of, audience, I guess. But I was like, all right, so I'll book a couple of rooms. I'll see if anyone wants to come. And expecting maybe to have to cancel the camp because I wasn't sure if anyone would want to come. But so I set it for a few months in the future, like maybe like 5 or 6 months out, and said, all right, this week-long camp, I'm going to call it Hell Week because we're going to train our asses off, and it's going to be hard work. And it booked out pretty quickly. So I think just
Wow.
the type of people that came along were those that were willing to work very hard, and I smashed them. And this is like, I absolutely killed them. And it was just me as the coach, and there was maybe just over 20 athletes who came along, and it was really, really fun. And look, people were buggered by the end of it. And so we were running that camp every year except for last year.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of fun. So then we started some camps in Hawaii and here in Noosa, which is in Queensland as well. And similar sort of thing, but now it's a little bit less about just killing people for the week, and we do a lot more technique work. So we do filming and analysis every day with people. We do some harder sessions, but it's more just about improving your swimming and learning about your stroke and everything else. So it's a bit more sort of enjoyment, education, and a bit more of a holiday than just a training camp. And that seems to appeal to people a lot more than getting smashed for a week. But it's just, like as a coach, it's so much fun. And I think for the athletes, we've had people who have come to like 5 of those Thailand camps, and like they really enjoy it. And we've got such a good group that keep coming back again and again. And I've made some really good friends from it. So we haven't got any camps coming up at the moment, but I think I'll start back next year when we can guarantee that people can get here, at least from New Zealand, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the world. But it's I just want to make that opportunity for adults, because like how often do you get to go on something like that as an adult? There's just nothing for them that was around. And so it's something that I loved as a 20 something, and now I just want to make that opportunity for people. And it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's a big, I think, hope of mine. Is last year I was gonna have my first camp, and I had everything all set, and I was going to do a houseboat-based camp on one of the big reservoirs here, it's in Northern California. It's a little south of where I'm at, and yeah, I had everything all set. We were like a month out of when things started shutting down. So my first camp was thwarted by a pandemic, but I do hope to resume, to try that sometime. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot that goes into it, as you know.
Yeah. What were you? So you'd all stay on a houseboat
Yeah,
and then
it was
swim
a
each
small
day from
group.
there. Hey,
Yeah, we were just gonna. We
that's
had a
awesome.
few spots. Like we were gonna do, like there's a bay where we would do maybe a circle, like a not, maybe not English Channel qualifier, but that kind of thing. Like we were gonna have some days where you just like the houseboat moved down and you swam to it, and then a day where the houseboat's parked and you do loops around it. And this big reservoir, they just, it pre-season, like before Memorial Day, there's some fishermen on the lake, but not really anybody that time of year. And the water is perfect for a cold water marathon camp, like probably 69. So I think 21, what you were saying was not
Yeah.
that comfortable for you, but good for like a distance, cold water distance training camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's a good setup with the houseboat.
yeah, I figured we could have a
If you can
hot
do
tub
that. So
there and a
yeah, how cool
kitchen.
is that?
Yeah.
It's like there's a few guys, there's one or two groups here in Melbourne that run nothing similar with a houseboat or anything, but they do some cold water camps in the bay here. And it just looks like for those that are especially training for something long, or they want to, or they love the cold water, it's such a good opportunity. And I mean, last year, for me, like we run these swim clinics, which is where we do a lot of our filming. And I've had so many people that pretty much took up swimming last year, or they got back into it since when they were a kid, and they've become cold water swimmers because like last year no pools open, and so the only thing they could really do exercise wise was swimming in the bay here. And so look, it gets down to like 10 or 11 degrees here, Celsius, which is, it's cold.
50,
And
yeah.
yeah, so
I have a table. I brought my cheat sheet.
I thought that's what that, yeah. You might need some Australian slang conversion table for that as well. But yeah, like I've had so many people who have just taken that up and they're loving it. So they've just turned themselves into cold water swimmers, and they do it every day if they can. And it's that's been one of the positives to come out of this, is people have really taken up that sport and have become addicted to it in a good way. They're just that feeling that you get. They love it. And the funny thing is, like I can often tell which swimmers are cold water swimmers when they walk into the pool for the clinic. Like there's something on their face, like you can just tell. Like it's yeah, they've got this big smile and they're just like, I don't know, there's something to it. I can I can pick them 9 times out of 10, I reckon.
That's awesome. But not for you. You're surfing, but not any other time dipping in the ocean, just for fun.
No, well, look, I do go down for a dip now and then. Like I went in, it's 12 degrees. I stayed in for like 2 minutes, but yeah, like I do like that refreshing feeling. But yeah, staying in there for long periods of time is not my my cup of tea. But I do yeah, I can appreciate those that do. Like it's one of the swimmers that came to a clinic on the weekend. Her next challenge is an ice mile, which is under 5 Celsius. I don't know what that is Fahrenheit, but like, oh my God, it's just yeah, it's gutsier than me. So yeah, I just try and I let them rub off on me when they come and attend the clinics. But yeah, I'm not that brave.
Sorry, different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah, that's right. How do you go in the cold? What's your what's the coldest sort of you get down to there?
I'm in a deserty part of Oregon, and our reservoirs get, like, they're probably, if you look at my table, like 1, 2, like in the middle of winter, and I've overwinter swam a couple years, but by the middle of winter we're just like getting wet. But I was
Jeez, that's cold though. So just above freezing, right?
Yeah,
My
yes,
God.
very much so. But it was definitely just an effort of, I guess part of the other marathon swim training I do with my clients is getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because you're kind of signing yourself up for that. So not to say that yeah, so some amount, like I feel like the cold tolerance, if you're gonna do, I initially started it when I was headed out to do Lake Tahoe, which is, I think it gets up to like 2021, like late summer, but I doing it earlier summer, it's it's mid 60s or like 19. So yeah. So anyway, just having some comfort, like cold comfort, I think kind of helps. Even not that you're not swimming in it for that long of a time, but just being familiar with the sensations of being cold helps you kind of know your body a little better. So that when you're uncomfortable, like in a swim, you could know like what kind of uncomfortable am I guess is my philosophy.
Well, it seems like something that you build up this tolerance to, and you become more comfortable in it, and your body just adapts. Like anything that you do more and more of, your body becomes familiar with it. And the thing that I found too is it's like I haven't done it recently, but we were doing a winter solstice swim. So on the shortest day of the year, myself and some people I used to coach, we would go and do a swim in the bay. So it was probably, I think the coldest maybe 9 or 10. And so we'd do like a K swim, a kilometer. And it was, and after the first 4 or 5 minutes, you actually settle down and you find this real calmness in it. And like after that, that's usually pretty good. But it's that for those first couple of minutes, at least for me, where it was just like, all right, you got to control your breathing, and then you just got to let yourself settle into it. But it's just teaching your mind to be able to not panic and to relax into it. And then you really find this like almost bliss state when you're there. And it's a really cool feeling to be there. So I can totally get the appeal of it. It's you get such a buzz. It takes so long to warm up though afterwards.
Yeah. How's the pandemic been for you?
So we had I was mentioning this to someone I was chatting to the other day, where it's like when you're running your business and if you do a SWOT plan, one of the threats you don't put is like pandemic and all pools closed all over the world. Right. So we had 2 months there. Maybe it was May and June, where like nothing was happening. Like nobody was watching swimming videos on YouTube because there was no pools open anywhere, and no one needed coaching because they couldn't swim. So there was 2 months there where like nothing was happening, and I was still hoping to be able to run our camps and stuff. Like we had 3 weeks of Thailand camps, sort of booked and paid, and same for Hawaii, same for Noosa, and so we had like, I don't know how many that is, but maybe like 80 or 90 swimmers who are booked and paid for camps. And I was just like, okay, we'll see if we can run them. Kept pushing it back and stuff. And in the end, I just went, I'm going to refund everyone and just hope, aim for next year. And then with our clinics, I think we probably had close to maybe 6 months, 5 or 6 months where we couldn't run clinics or anything. So there was a time there where I was like, well, this is interesting. And we'll see what happens. But we managed to get through it fine. And now things are just like, things are bigger than what they were before in terms of how many clinics we're doing, the online coaching. Like people are just, they want it. They want to improve their swimming. So a lot of people are taking it up, and they were sick of not doing much last year. So we got through it fine. I've got to be pretty, grateful for that, because things are like, pretty much open here in Australia, and we've got, no restrictions essentially. So got through it fine, which is very lucky, because, a lot of swimming clubs lost quite a few swimmers because of it. And, if you're just coaching a squad or a club, like you may not still have work. I know in a lot of places overseas. So it's, very, very tough for the industry. So I hope, I was lucky. I can't complain how things are now, which are good. How about yourself?
I kind of the camp I was telling you about, I just did the same thing, like push off the decision. And then I finally just like give everyone their money back, because it was just easier than trying to hope that something was gonna, that we could materialize something, and who knows when's. And but all my summer events, everything was canceled. And then I just didn't even have the confidence once things were even starting to open up a little in the summer. We were feeling just really COVID cautious, I call it, wanted to make sure my husband was still able to work. So we were just staying at home, and I have an endless pool, so I'm super spoiled and lucky.
Oh, that's good.
But I didn't feel comfortable hosting people in my backyard. So I'm trying to bring things back this year. And hope, I'm optimistic. I guess I'm pushed a lot of my I pushed a few new services online, or started pushing a little bit more of what I had online out there. But yeah, it was a tough year, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can imagine. It's I remember being in it, and like kind of it might have been like May or June when there's so much uncertainty, and it's like, how long is it going to last, and when are we going to start to come out the other end of it? And I was just like, it felt like there's going to be no end to it when
Yeah.
there's all that uncertainty. So one of the good things that feels now is that, okay, well, like, we can see a bit of a path that things are opening, and it's like it's in that better trajectory now. But yeah, geez, it was hard to stay positive at that time when you don't know what's going to happen, and you just and like my wife wasn't working, she was looking after the kids, and then there was just like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to coach again. So she ended up getting finding some work, and then it's like 2 weeks later, I think we ended up opening up, and I was back at it. So we got lucky with that. But yeah, there was a time I'm like, oh, hang on a second, what's going on? So yeah, I'm glad we're almost here we're kind of out of it in Australia, but it seems that way in the States as well.
We're on the way. Yeah. My lifeline through the whole thing, of course, was starting Marathon Swim Stories, which I kicked off at the beginning of the pandemic. I called it virtual swim practice. And the times I would usually go to the pool, we started just talking. We started out complaining about not being able to swim. And then I was like, wait a second, we could talk to people. This could be fun. So
cool.
So that's how this whole madness started, which has been amazing to be able to just connect to people all over the world and talk about something I love. So that's been fun.
It's so good that you to be able to do it. Isn't like, I've learned from my own podcast, like I've learned so much from talking to people, and you meet a lot of people through it as well, and then that leads you to other people, and it's like you can really and it's obviously people that are interested in what you're interested in as well. It's like,
right.
One of the things that my wife used to hate is when we'd have, like I say, barbecue at our house, and all the guys that I was coaching would come over, and we'd just talk about swimming, and she's just roll her eyes and be like, can we talk about something else here? So it's, it's funny, isn't it? Like, you just it's so easy to talk about swimming because we love it, and it's what we do and think about so often. And so it's good to be able to do that and do it on a podcast where lots of other people can listen, and you don't know who's listening either. Like, you just that's a cool thing about podcasts. Like, the amount of people who've said, I like your podcast, and like I've met them at the pool, and it's like, that's awesome that people actually are listening to it, because you don't know sometimes. It's like, you're just talking, put it out there and see what happens. Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, it's funny. Tell us about your podcast. So you've got, gosh, how many episodes now? Hundreds.
We're at 100 and I don't know, maybe 70 or so. And I've been very sporadic with it. So I'm trying to be more consistent. I'm trying to do it weekly. But for me, like, I don't know when I started. I'm thinking probably like 6 years ago it might have started. So it was a while ago that I started. And I've had a business coach for a while. And one of the things he said was, you should do a podcast. And the anxiety I had around, first of all, like, hosting a podcast and then having guests on. And if I had, like, the first guest I had was a guy, Michael Klim, who's quite a famous Australian swimmer. He's Olympic gold medalist, world record holder, like, big name. And so I knew him through a friend of mine. And so I had him on the first podcast, and I remember just sitting there and like, all right, just breathe. Okay. Yeah. Slow down. And I had all these questions planned for him, and I don't want to listen back to it, because I imagine it would be quite hard to listen to, but
exactly.
but I was so nervous about doing it. And now it's just like, okay, it's easy. Like, you're just talking to people. It's a conversation, which is good now. But boy, it took me probably, I don't know, 2 years to be able to sort of get rid of those nerves and be okay doing it. So like, for me, that was a good thing to have, like, personal growth to be able to get comfortable doing it. And so there's been a few things like that have pushed my comfort zone as well. And that's what looking back, like, I'm grateful to have been through that, and to do it, because how do you feel on your first episode or first couple episodes, and then putting it out there for everyone to listen to? How'd you go with that?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I kind of started with I don't think I even had the idea to make it a podcast. I published it on YouTube, I think, but it took a little while before I was like, hey, wait, I could strip the audio, and then you get
Mm.
like you just put it out there. I don't know, then you really don't know where it's going. But yeah, listening back to some of those early episodes is not fun because I'm
Yeah.
like reading questions, like, hold on a second, like trying. It was, yeah, pretty embarrassing when thinking back to it. But yeah, when you realize it can just be a conversation with people and that someone gets something from that, or maybe they don't, and it doesn't really matter because I'm having a good time.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly right. And it's like, it's kind of like, yeah, pushing your comfort zone in the water as well. It's just like the first time you do it, like the first time I did open water swimming, I sucked at it. But you just get better and better. And so, I look at that with like open water swimming. All right, it's something that I got good at. Same with podcasting. Like, I don't think I'm a great podcaster, but it's like I know that I've gotten better at it and more comfortable with it. So all these little things that you can just kind of add to your tool belt, and you can look back at and go, yeah, I've worked hard at this and I've gotten better at it. Like, that's for me, gives me a real sense of accomplishment. And I've got to remind myself too, when I'm going through, often, like, if I'm frustrated with something that's not quite working, and you eventually sort of get it done. Like, for example, one of the things that with this was I put out like a 5-day catch challenge, like help improve your catch in 5 days. And
Yeah.
I filmed the videos. That was fine. Like, it's just me talking about swimming. That's the easy part. But then it was the other stuff. It was getting it up online and putting up the website, and then just like making sure that people would get an email each day with all the content and stuff. And so I was getting frustrated with it, like, because that's not my specialty. It's like, I can talk about swimming, that's fine, but then it's all the technical stuff.
Yeah.
And so it took me another 2 weeks on top of what it should have, I think, until I eventually got it up and going. But after I did it, it's like the results have been great. Like, heaps of people have been saying, like, I've taken 5 seconds or 10 seconds off my 100 times, and like, I really enjoyed it. And so it was worth it. And I look back and go, oh, that's, okay, I'm glad I did it. But yeah, I've got to catch myself sometimes when I'm getting frustrated with those minor details, that you go, on the other end of this is something good. So it means that you're doing something worthwhile when you sort of get to that point.
Yeah. The like a couple things like with podcasting, with anything, when you have that idea, it's like just start, like, and if it's a marathon swim, it's like, just sign up and then go swimming, and you just start, and then start working your way up, because you just got to start, But I thought for sure you had a team of like 100 people back there. You put together so much amazing stuff. It's just you?
I've got two sort of people that help me with the videos and the podcasts and stuff like that, and the customer support and all of that. But no, we're a small team, and yeah, and I've got a coach in Sydney that runs my Sydney clinics. But no, we're a pretty small team. But the two people that work with me are they're fantastic at that. But in terms of like some of the technical stuff, like I end up doing that myself. But I try and just sometimes get people to do it, because it's not my specialty.
Well, everything takes longer than you think. I know from trying to migrate some of my own content online. It's just like, you think, oh yeah, I'll just do this in a half an hour or an hour or whatever, and then next thing you know, it's 2 days later, and you're like, I just want to get this done. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I've got a question for you. What do you in the last couple of years? It seems like there's been a big movement towards wild swimming, and like I can't remember the group on Facebook that is, but there's like maybe Outdoor Swimming Society, I think is one of them. Like, I just see so many posts there and so many people getting into it, and they're not even necessarily like swimming, just like getting into creeks or riverbeds, whatever it is, and just enjoying the water. What do you think's been why has that big movement happened in the last couple of years?
Well, the pandemic, obviously, with no pools open, that no-brainer. But even before then, I don't know. I guess I would like to think it's well, and I mean, I live in an area where I don't know that anyone's graduated to that to that yet. I want to think though that people are trying to become more aware of their environment, and they maybe want to try out their local waters to see if they're swimmable and find out if they're safe. I don't know though exactly what it is. I mean, I know for me, I had all kinds of open water fears coming from pool swimming. I'd swam in a pool my whole life, and I didn't have any idea what it was like lake weed. I was like, this is nasty to get past, or what's down there, when you can't see. But I guess for me, it was so. Like I still to this day I go swim at the pool and just doing flip turns, like there's just this, like just having to hold your breath. And I mean, it's stuff I used to be really good at and I could get back if I practiced. But when I'm in open water, I don't ever have any of that feeling of just, I don't know. Everything, it's just the rhythm is easier to come by. I don't have to worry about a wall getting in the way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. There's something to that. Yeah, I think just being in nature is a massive one. Like yeah, it's good for the soul. It feels like we did. I think it was Easter weekend. Some of the group that I train with down here, we did a swim from Bells Beach, which is like a really famous surfing beach here in Australia, down to Cozy Corner at Torquay. It's a 6K swim. It's not massive or anything, but it was so spectacular. It was a great day for it. It was flat. There was a very small swell, and it was early in the morning, so the sun was coming up, and it was just magical. And like it for me, there was in terms of swimming, like it doesn't get better than that when you get to be in the ocean, other people around as well, swimming at a similar pace, and you just you become a part of the environment. And after that, it's just like, yeah, there's this real calmness that you've got about your manner and how you are and how you feel after doing something like that. And I even get that sometimes with, like, if you're swimming and it's really choppy and it's hideous conditions, there's something fun about being in that chaos, because you still find your rhythm and everything in that chaos. And when you come out of it, it's just like, that was cool. I sort of survived that. And
exactly,
it's the same thing with surfing. When it's big and it's wild, it's like, yes, this is good. If you can be calm and relaxed in that sort of environment, then you feel like you can deal with a lot of other stuff as well.
Right. Yeah. Perspective, right? Gives you new perspective. And that, I mean, that feel when you can look back and be like, oh yeah, I did that, like that feeling of accomplishment, I think goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, one of the things I've found as a coach, when people do go from, say, the pool to open water swimming, there's that uncomfortable feeling and panic sometimes it comes with it. But for me, it often just comes back to breathing. And I was listening to, I listened to a surfing podcast, and the coach on there, he was talking about when the waves are really big, if you're paddling out and you're working really, really hard to get out the back and your heart rate's up at 170, 180, then you've got no energy left for when you eventually get out there. So if you just relax, just slow down your breathing, and eventually that water that's being pushed in by the waves is going to recede and it's going to have to go back out. So if you can just, work with it, come back to your breathing, then you're going to be much, much calmer out there. And the same thing when you're paddling into a big wave is, if you're panicked and you're rushing, then you're probably going to panic and rush on the stand up, and you might not, you might fall off because you rust with it. Same thing with swimming, I find, is if you can just always come back to your breathing and settle that, then that takes care of a lot of that panic and exhaustion at the start. So I try and communicate that to the swimmers that I coach. If they're doing triathlon in a mass start and there's people around and they're not comfortable in the water, it's like, just come back to your breathing, find that rhythm, and go from there.
That's a good one. I have this theory that oxygen exchange, like that's the secret to swimming fast, right? Is that somebody can get their turnover going, like have perfect technique and everything, but the oxygen exchange, you have to be able to exhale enough so that you can inhale just the right amount, but finding that balance, that's the secret, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all it takes. Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's because when I've got people at clinics and they're maybe new to the sport, and they say that they're exhausted after 100 or 200 meters, you can see it. One of the things you'll notice between them and the other swimmers that are comfortable in the water, if we're doing a drill like front kick, so you face down, you got both hands in front, you got fins on, the swimmers that are comfortable, they'll push off, nice steady kick, sitting on top of the water, they look relaxed, and they're floating really well. the swimmers that aren't comfortable, they're really tense through the
Mm-hmm.
hands, through the shoulders, everything. And then they're kicking super, super hard. And they'll get to the end, pretty quickly, but they're exhausted. And you can see that comes out in their stroke, is there's so much tension in that, and with their breathing, that it's just not rhythmic, or it's not relaxed at all. And so I will often say to them, like, if you were walking down the street and you were like going, it's like, you're going to tire out walking as well. So what happens if you just slow your breathing down, and you just have a more natural exhale, and if you're able to relax that part of it, then you'll probably find that you won't get as exhausted. But look, I get it, because if you think about it, if you're someone who's not a good swimmer, and you get put in somewhere that's deep and you can't stand up, it can be a daunting thing. It's like, well, how am I going to like stay above the water? Like, because my body just wants to sink. But it's kind of that contrast, right? Because the more you panic, the more you tense up, the more you're going to sink. But if you can relax, you're going to float better. So it's like it's hard to make that step, but once they make it, I think it seems to click for them, and then they can go about it. But it's getting them over that hurdle at the start.
Yeah. And I think though too, there's the second hurdle. I think is like where I feel like you can swim. Like for me, I can swim really efficiently to a certain pace, but to push to like that next level, I need to be able to exhale more so that I can inhale. Like, just again, it's not like you're inhaling a lot, but it's like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me. But when I start pushing my pace, I don't exhale as consistently as I can at a slower pace. So
yeah, right. So you find like you're topping up on half a lung full of air, like you still got something left in there, you mean?
well, I think I just end up not being able to like really go that fast. I feel like I could just go faster if I could exhale and inhale more, like it more rhythmically, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, gotcha. Are you breathing every 2 or every 3?
3 to 2. I go back and forth. I do kind of a 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, something like that.
Yeah, cool. You sound like me. Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah, change it that way. Yeah, it's I mean, one of the things I've found a lot when working with people is that ability to change speed. They don't there's so many swimmers that have come to me, and their session or their sessions is the same every single time. So it's like, get in 200 meters swimming and then 1K straight, all at the same pace. And so what we have to do is show them how you might structure a set and how you might vary your pace within that set. And if you can develop your gears by by going like one at 70%, 80%, 90%, if you can get really good at that, that's going to help you when it comes to your racing. Now, obviously, you don't really need that for like a marathon swimmer or anything, but I mean, I work with a lot of triathletes and stuff like that, and even some junior kids of like 10, 11, 12. I've had them, and they haven't, like, they just will do like a 4 100s build, and they're doing it. They're meant to get faster, and they'll get slower because they go too fast on the first one. And so it's like such a good skill to develop. And I've seen some great results when people actually get that, and they make their training include some of those progressively building sets in there.
Yeah. I realize I'm keeping you over an hour. Maybe I'll just wrap it up with a couple more questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so you talked a few times about these 12 and 15-hour coaching weekends. What motivates you to keep going?
Well, to be fair, so I don't coach squat anymore. I stopped when I had my first child. So I was getting up at like 4:30 in the morning and coaching 4 mornings a week, and then maybe 3 nights a week. And look, it wasn't hard, but those early mornings are sometimes challenging. But so now, like, the only sort of in-person coaching that I do is these clinics, and I've just decided to, for the most part, pack them into a Saturday or just a Sunday. So, for example, it's like on the weekend I had 3 clinics, so 7 o'clock all the way through till 7 p.m. I had 3 clinics within the day, and that was my choice, because that way Saturday I get to swim or surf, hang out with the kids, and that sort of thing. So in terms of coaching, I'm not doing like 60 or 70-hour weeks, so I can't complain in terms of hours and stuff like that. Right. But I have thought about, like, is this something that I would like to keep doing 5 years, 10 years down the track, coaching? And I the answer I've come to is yes. Like I love a lot of aspects of it. I like working with people and seeing those results. Like that to me is really cool. Also, you get to meet really good people as well through podcasts, through events, and through clinics and all that sort of stuff. And I think for me as well, like people, you want to be good at something. And so like I put a lot of time into coaching and putting out videos and that sort of thing. And like I feel like I've got a long way to go, and there's still so much I can learn. But I enjoy getting better and getting better at this and being able to help people. And so I know that there's still a lot that I can learn. So yeah, that's the challenge for me, I think. And the thing that appeals to me is like, I still know I can, hopefully improve with it. So I'm lucky that I get to do this. And I mean, sort of, it's a real passion of mine, swimming. And it sounds like it's obviously the same for you with swimming. So to be able to do anything on the coaching end of it is, I think we're pretty lucky to be able to do it.
Yeah. I feel like if I can make this work, I've worked successfully in technology for years and years and years and made a lot more money than I do coaching, but I would just rather do something that I love to do instead of just earning a paycheck, basically.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that stood out to me last year was like I was traveling. I was like on 80 flights or something in 2019. Like I was flying and traveling a lot. I was away a lot with the camps and the clinics. I was interstate, most weekends, and that was too much. And then last year was like, I do enjoy hanging out with the kids and playing with them. I do enjoy actually spending more time at home and being able to like just have a regular routine and not be traveling all the time. And so that's why I've slowed down the travel a bit and just enjoying a more sort of normal or similar day-to-day thing, because then I get to do all the things I enjoy, which is okay, I get to train in the morning, get to swim, get to play with the kids and the family, get to surf, get to do the coaching. Like it's really and that's like, if I'm doing that, I'm happy. But if I was working 60, 70 hours in something that I didn't quite enjoy, like I know that wouldn't be the case. Whether if I made more money, look, that wouldn't matter. It's like what I actually enjoy. And I think that's a lot of people realize that, it seems, in the last 12, 18 months.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the gift of the pandemic.
Yeah, what a gift. Yeah.
Who's inspired you?
It's I think I was lucky. My parents were both involved in swimming, and one of the things I've talked a bit about is like my dad as a coach. He was a hard ass in the respect to how you should behave as a person. So in terms of coaching, like he was a great coach, and he wasn't a old school hard ass coach, but he was a hard ass as in, when you come to the pool, you better say hello to him and use his name, and for the other swimmers. So hello, goodbye, please, thank you, all those sorts of things. And developed a really good culture with it. And for a lot of the swimmers that trained under him as a junior athlete from say 12 to 18, they had said like, swimming growing up, like they learned so much from that in terms of stuff that's helped them in their jobs or in day-to-day life or family life. So I think like my dad and my mum as well, like they were amazing to have as parents. So I was very lucky to have that. And I've taken a lot of stuff that they've taught me into the coaching that I do. So I think it sort of started there. And then I don't know, I've had a number of different coaches that I've talked to and friends and stuff over the years that I just have learned a lot from. And then in terms of swimming aspirations, I don't sort of have any at the moment. There's nothing there that challenges me, because I think I get quite a bit of I see it with so many people that I talk to, like this girl that was doing the 100K swim the other day across 5 days. Like I get to talk to people and live vicariously through them for that. So I guess I don't know. I quite like the way I learn is a lot from stories. Is hearing people tell stories. So I don't know, I picked up so many different little nuggets from stories that people have told, or from coaches. There's different phrases that I've heard them explain things in. And so the way that I coach, I take credit for about 5% of it. I think I've sort of learnt it from everyone else, and I couldn't tell you where half the things have come from, but I've heard them from other coaches. So yeah, there's no one in particular, but there is one thing I will mention is in terms of my swimming coaching, there was an article that was written by a friend of mine, Wayne Goldsmith, about Bill Sweetenham, he's been around coaching for a very long time. And the article he wrote was basically, can Bill Sweetenham still coach these days? As in, like, he was an old school, very hard coach, would make people do some incredible sets, and like wasn't necessarily not personal, but he was a very hard coach and make people work incredibly hard. And the article was looking at, has he changed his style to better suit today's coaching, where it's more personable and, you're actually communicating with the swimmers and they're helping you kind of set the programming a bit. And reading this article, one of the things I picked out from that is that this coach, Bill Sweetenham, he's so good at communicating with the athletes now, where he'll ask them questions and get them to come up with the answers that they need. As in, like, instead of saying at the end of a session, I want you to do 100 dive max effort. All right, go all out. All right, I want you to do another one. And like, they're already exhausted. And instead of telling them, he'll say, all right, what do you think you need to do? What do you think your competitor X is doing? Do you think they'd get up and do another, max 100 here? And the swimmer will think about it and go, yeah. He goes, all right, would you like to do one? I go, yep. And so like probing questions like that. And so I read this article and it changed the way that I was approaching my coaching, a little bit less tell and a bit more like, directing them with questions and getting them to answer, come up with the answers themselves. So yeah, that to me was actually a big change in the way that I now coach. And I try and do it with my kids as well, just to get, instead of me telling them off, but it doesn't work as well. I think they've got to be a bit older.
They're close. They're really close. It's amazing. Just in the last year with my kids, we were talking earlier, Brenton's kids are a couple, he's 3 and 5, and I'm 4, mine are 4 and 6, but yeah, it's gotten better just in the last year. And it's fun when you when you talk to them like that, though. I mean, I see it pays off, and I see them when they interact with other people, that other people appreciate that. They'll start asking thoughtful questions to other people, and I just love that. So keep doing it.
Yeah, good. All right, I'll stick with it.
Yeah. You were talking about the 5% of the things you think are yourself. Like, I feel like I'm an amalgamation of like everybody I've ever met and interacted with, and that's what's made me. But yeah, like, you can't be. Yeah, I don't know. Like, you can't not be influenced by somebody that you come across, right? So.
It's exactly right. And the only, I say, like, the 5% that is not is actually my own. So like 2 years ago, I was running clinics, and the way that we teach the catch in the pool 2 or 3 years ago was we're using these different drills, and we spend too much time trying to get people to do the drills right. And it's like, yeah, we'll help you with the swim, but it was just too much time spent just on getting the drills right, and it's not necessarily helping their swim. And so I got to that point where I was like, there's got to be a better way to kind of teach them this stuff that we want them to do, and for them to actually be able to then take it away and practice it. And so I thought for a couple of months, and I ended up coming up with these 3 drills. We call it the Ymca Progression. And like, I feel like if I was to tell any age group competitive coach these drills, they'd probably look at it and go, yeah, okay, like, that's a bit weird. But they work incredibly well for what we do at these clinics, and the results that when people come back and get filmed again, like, we're seeing the majority of them really improve their catch and pull, which is really the most important part of the stroke for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we made up these drills, and in my mind, I was like, what right do you have to come up with your own drills? And all of that stuff. But it worked really, really well. And so what I sort of gathered from that is, there's no rules in how you do this stuff. Just come up with whatever works for you, and if it works, great. And don't worry what others might think or say about it. Like, if it works, then that's the most important thing. So yeah, that's the 5%. That's my own.
No, but there's a lot to be. Nobody swims perfectly yet, right? We're all still learning about our bodies and our bodies in the water, and I don't know. I mean, there's some people that are probably pretty close or perfect, but I don't know. It's fun to keep learning. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, exactly right. Doesn't stop,
Right.
which is that's half the fun. Like when I was coaching masters, so I had so many of them that were doing PBs as like in their late 40s, some of them early 50s, like PBs compared to when they were a kid as well. And it's like, oh my, okay, so right, it can be done, you know. It doesn't stop. So I mean, that's pretty amazing that people can still be swimming faster in their
Yeah.
40s and 50s.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I love, I guess, about swimming. It truly is a lifelong sport.
Yeah, that's right. Which is great, isn't it? You know, I'm glad we're not doing like MMA fighting or even like maybe marathon running. Yeah, you can swim for until you're 100, which you see. I remember my dad went to a masters competition. I would have been probably 15. He came back and he's like, yeah, this competition on the weekend was great, but there's a lady in her 80s that did I think it was an 800 or a 1500 freestyle, and it took, maybe it was a 1500, and it took an hour. And so the whole meet was held up an hour for this one this one lady to finish her 1500. And at the end, everyone got up and clapped. And no, I think she was 90 something. And
Wow.
so it was amazing, but it's just like, it was a long day that day.
Yeah.
So that story's always stuck with me.
Put them in the open
Doesn't matter how
water.
old you are.
Then they're not
Yeah,
holding up the swim meet.
yeah, exactly right. Yeah. See, another benefit to open water.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you so much for all of the work you do, Brenton. I'll put some links in the show notes to like your 5-day catch challenge. I checked that out. There's just so much great stuff, and I've learned a lot from you. So thank you for putting so much stuff out there. It's awesome.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah, thanks very much for having me on it.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Do you want to take marathon swim stories with you? Subscribe on your favorite podcast provider. Want to connect with like-minded limit pushers? Join us for Marathon Swim Stories live on Tuesdays at 5:30 a.m. Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, 13:30 GMT. Thanks for watching.